Hey y'all, welcome back to Exile Wargaming, where today, and as always, we're going to be talking about winning with Harlequins in competitive 10th edition Warhammer 40k with a battle report against Thousand Suns. Now, I've been trying to lock down a Thousand Suns matchup for quite a while now, and turns out we finally found one. The new data slate is in, new points are adjusted, and we're going to start getting to work. Now, we did have a few point decreases across our list, mainly in the Falcons, going down from 140 points to 130 points each. Our list isn't going to change too much, though, as there are only a few units that we could run without affecting the overall synergy of its entirety. So we're still running the Solitaire. We're running 2 Troop Masters. One of them has Fate's Messenger, because I didn't know what else to do with the points. We're running Yvraine in the Vizark, attached to a 12-man unit of Harlequin troops for that fights first and some highly lethal damage down the line. We have 5 units of 5 Harlequin troops, 3 Star Weavers, 2 Falcons with Bright Lance and Shuriken cannons. We have 2 units of 2 Sky Weavers with Haywire and Star Bolus, and we have 2 D cannons. Now this list is coming in at 16 total units at 1,990 points. Now our opponent is bringing the Thousand Suns with Magnus, 2 Infernal Masters, one with Lord of Forbidden Lore, another with Umbralific Crystal, Exalted Sorcerer on disc with Arcane Vortex, Ahriman attached to a 10-man unit of Rubik Marines, and then 2 5-man units of Rubik Marines as well. There are 2 Mutalith Vortex Beasts, which are absolutely insane units, especially for their points cost. There's 2 units of Cultists for actions, another unit of Zangors for some actions, and a Rhino. They are coming in at 11 total scoring units at 2,000 points on the nose. Now we're going to be playing Terrain Layout 1 in the Pariah Nexus format, Mission K, which is Scorched Earth, Stalwarts, and Search and Destroy style deployment. Now, to be honest with y'all, it's been a little while since I got a chance to get a game against Thousand Suns. It's also been a while since I've been able to get the Harlequins back on the board. So we're digging into deployment. It was nice to get onto a map and a deployment type that I'm pretty familiar with. I wish I would have been able to get more games in Pariah Nexus as I can. Unfortunately, sometimes life just takes over, and we just have to make do with the time that we have. Now, in this section, we have a whole bunch of different options that we can get into, but we want to play it kind of defensively. I know that Thousand Suns have a lot of tricks. There's a lot of movement shenanigans. They can double move. They have some access to indirect fire. And to be frank, I just wasn't entirely sure what they were capable of. It's one of those armies where if you're not familiar playing with it, it could feel a little overwhelming. So I did deploy a little bit more conservatively than I traditionally would as far as my movement and everything else. But I'm going to hold true and just move forward with our basic battle plans that we really try to enact in a lot of other games. So we have Yvraine and the Vizark with the big unit of Harlequin troops right here. On first turn, if I need to, I can phantasm them off into safety, or if our opponent gets first turn, if we get first turn, we're just going to push them up into this ruin, threaten a charge, or just defend the mid board for whenever we would need it. We have both of our Falcons behind cover. One can pop out here, get any angles that we need to down this line, but it can also, if our opponent decides to move forward, which I don't believe they would, we can react pretty nicely with our Harlequin troops, get some rerolls from the Troop Masters and all their dev wounds afterwards. Now, I did place a Star Weaver up top here, just kind of open, really just hoping to bait this Vortex Beast out and make something happen. Otherwise, what I've been really enjoying lately, especially on a map like this, is pushing this Star Weaver up to this section of the board right here. What it does is it creates this like kind of perfect angle for us to be able to stage while they also can't interact with us. But if he decides to put any units up here, we can drop our troops out, uh, you know, 3 inches from the transport, shoot, throw grenades, whatever we need to do, and then hop back in afterwards. So that is the main reason why he's here. Either it's going to be bait or he's going to push up early on. We have the ability to back up this objective with the Falcon over here, but we're pretty much just using our tried and true symmetry. We have a unit of Skyweavers in the middle to push out into this board. They're probably going to be the unit that we utilize to score actions. We have a Solitaire behind this rune, and then we have another Star Weaver and another unit of Skyweavers over here to just kind of push and hold this section of the board. There are D cannons positioned right behind this rune and right behind this one as well. So we can cover both of these central objectives. We are unfortunately going to be a little out of range of doing anything meaningful over here. But for our opponent, they end up deploying pretty conservatively. Now, this was pretty unique. We outdropped them by a good bit. He ended up putting both of the Mutalith Vortex Beasts down here. There's another unit of Rubric Marines, I believe the one with Umbralific Crystal, the one that can pick up and put down wherever they needed, and a unit of Zangors to kind of screen or block for them as well. If they really need it, I think they can maybe double move to this objective in the middle if they get area denial or something like that. I think that's the game plan. There is a Rhino with Ahriman and the 10-man unit of Rubrics. There's another unit of Rubric Marines behind this wall, and I think they have Lord of Forbidden Lore. There is an Infernal Master or Exalted Sorcerer on the table with the Arcane Vortex, and then a unit of Cultists over here that can scout and get up to this. He only has one unit in reserve, and it is a secondary unit of Cultists afterwards. So we end up winning the turn 1 dice roll and get to go first. We draw Marked for Death and Assassination. Now, generally, I do not recommend doing this, but against Thousand Sons and based on how our opponent has deployed and everything beyond, I am assuming that they are not going to push their entire force into us, expose themselves to D cannons, the Falcon's counterpunch, anything like that. So I did use a command point and redraw to get containment on the first turn. So all we ended up doing, we pretty much left everyone where they should be, is what we talked about in deployment. We moved this Star Weaver up to this wall, just ready to interact. If he puts a unit of cultists onto this objective, we can end up moving our troops out, and they will easily take out that unit as well. If he ends up moving rubrics out or whatever it may be, we're going to get a few fusion pistol shots in and some grenades without having to worry about Overwatch either, as long as, you know, we stay outside of that range and we don't move out of the Falcon more than our typical disembark. We end up moving Yvrain's unit up and out over here. We have this screened just enough so that he cannot drop one of the rubric units with Umbralific Crystal over here. And then we push our Star Weaver and our Sky Weavers out to this side of the board. What we ended up doing is moving the Sky Weaver all the way up here, and then we had to get out our troops so that they can do containment on this edge of the board, and the Sky Weavers did containment on this edge of the board as well. So we walk out of the first turn, no shots are fired, but we do get ourselves a pretty good amount in secondary points. In our opponent's turn 2, they end up drawing Secure No Man's Land and Marked for Death. In between, they had Call the Horde, but we discard that. As far as Secure No Man's Land, this should be pretty simple for them, being able to get onto this outer objective over here. Everything else just kind of pushes out a hair. The Mutalith Vortex Beast comes up this side. The other one starts staging to push out towards this objective as well. Magnus stays where he is. Ahriman and the Rhino stay where they are. The Infernal Master Exalted Sorcerer, one of the guys on disc, moves up into this rune. And then this unit of Rubric Marines moves right out to here, so I guess they could just threaten Overwatch. They are like a hair away from being inside of D cannon range, but also if I really wanted and I pop these guys out, I'm going to be outside of fusion pistol range. If I do decide to charge, they're going to get scorched. It's a pretty good defensive spot for them. Beyond this, no shots were fired. There's no targets available. We move on to the next turn with our opponent scoring 2 on Secure No Man's Land. In our turn 2, there was a lot of debate before I ended up drawing my secondaries on how I kind of wanted to approach this game. I had the option, right? We can almost stalemate each other throughout the entirety of this game. Neither of us really wanted to commit for fear of, just the clapback or the overwatch or the threats that each of us kind of proposes. But being that we had the first turn, I think it's our duty to be a little bit more aggressive. Then when we drew our secondaries in extend battle lines, then we drew call the horde, got rid of it, and got storm hostile objective. It kind of made the decision that much easier for us. Being that this is scorched earth as well, I want to be able to start burning objectives and putting pressure on our opponents, force them to come out. So I would love to be able to burn this center objective. We end up moving the solitaire out over here to do this action. We move our Skyweavers up here to kind of block this portion of the board a little bit. The Falcon pushes out towards this angle, who now has shots into this squad of rubrics. Our Starweaver over here pushes out just a hair. After disembarking their troops, they stay out of range to get overwatched, moving towards this back angle over here, and we can get shots here. We move the other Starweaver up. There are no troops inside of it. They got out to screen this back edge of our board and hold the home field objective. And he's just going to get shots down here as well. If for some reason the Falcon gets blown up, we can get our troops back in the Starweaver the turn after and just kind of have a little mobile platform beyond this. The Falcon that was in the center is going to move out over here, try to get shots on this Mutalith Vortex Beast. And then the Starweaver and the Skyweavers that were behind this objective end up pushing out as well to shoot into this Vortex Beast. This is the kind of point of the game where it was like, we're going to go for broke. If it happens, it happens. While I was talking through this turn or thinking about everything, asking our opponent a million questions on what they could do or what they were capable of, it all just kind of seemed a little too much. So I figured we're going to push them up. We're going to destroy everything we can. And if I can tie up a couple of these units or wipe out some units that they're going to need to score, then we're going to be in much, much better shape. So the plan this round is essentially to move up your Vrain's unit, use a 6 on our fate dice, and just get in to this backfield and hopefully tie up one of these Vortex Beasts if we can't bring them down, and just let the rest of our force expand across the board and start holding objectives. In our shooting phase, we dump everything that we possibly can on this side of the board into the Mutalith Vortex Beasts. We get a few fusion pistol shots. We were not in Melta range, but we ended up getting 2 damage through on one. We got a Bright Lance shot through, but he ended up blanking this the damage to a 0 after I believe we rolled a 7 on the damage itself, which was a little rough. We end up throwing grenades. Yvrain herself's unit ends up doing a couple devastating wounds. That was nice. The Starweaver over here fires in, ends up getting 2 wounds, and then the Skyweavers come in, I believe, and get 3 wounds as well. These Skyweavers and this Falcon also put shots all the way down, and we are finally able to bring down the Vortex Beast. It only took 2 Falcons, 2 units of Skyweavers, a Starweaver, and Yvrain's entire brick to make this happen. Between the re-rolling, a save, I believe, somewhere around there, and being able to blank a damage, this thing was incredibly durable. I think it's 12 or 13 wounds with a 5+, feel no pain, and a 5-up invulnerable. It was a lot more than I thought was going to be needed to take that down, plus some grenades as well. Up top, we ended up firing the shuriken cannons from this Falcon, this Starweaver into the Rubric Marines, and we're able to bring down just 4 of them with about 15 shuriken cannon shots. So they were rolling hot on the saves. Saving on 3+ was pretty good. It is left with the Infernal Master and an Inspiring Sorcerer, I believe, afterwards. In the charge phase, we end up using a 6 on our fate dice to guarantee a charge into all the targets that we wanted to get into. We end up pushing into the Zangors. There was just enough space to get the Vizark into contact with the Rubric Marines in the back, and then a couple other troops to tie up this Mutalith Vortex Beast. I believe 5 or 6 troops went into the Zangor, completely wiped that unit. The Vizark himself, before Yvrain got to attack, actually wiped all of the Rubric Marines. He was absolutely bonkers. I think we rolled 2 6s on this, and he had like 9 hits coming through, wounding on 2s, -4 AP, 2 damage each. These guys fell pretty handily. And then the Vortex Beast, I don't believe ended up taking any wounds. We only had a couple guys delegating their attacks into him. So the Yvrane's unit themselves, in combination with everything else, we took down the Mutalith Vortex Beast over here, a unit of Zangors, a unit of Rubric Marines, an Infernal Master, and then tied up another Vortex Beast as well. This is a pretty big swing for us. On the other side of the board, we did roll 3 on our charge initially. We command point re-rolled it, and we're able to swing into these cultists very, very handily, bringing them down. So we are going to get Storm Hostile Objective and extend battle lines this turn for a total score of 9 on our secondaries. And our opponent's turn 2, they really have to start making something happen. They end up drawing Cleanse and Bring It Down as their secondary objectives. Now, we've eliminated, I believe, 4 scoring units of their 11 off the board right now, and they really have to make something happen. If we start burning these objectives, we're going to run away with the score, even if they can, make a comeback late in the game. So Magnus ends up moving out. I believe everything that they have right now has devastating wounds. He does the -1 damage ability that he has, and tries to make a couple things work. Now, they are down a number of Cabal points as well, so there was no double Doom Bolt this turn, as we were talking about in turns prior. Up top here, the unit of Rubric Marines, the Aspiring Sorcerer, and the Infernal Master pretty handily, very easily, bring down our unit of Harlequin troops up here, so they will take back that objective. The Exalted Sorcerer on disc moves up and tries to get in shots into the Skyweavers to get them off of this objective. Brings one of them down to just 1 wound remaining. The Solitaire is still on this point, doing the action for Scorched Earth, trying to burn that objective, but unfortunately Magnus would have to travel all the way around to make this a reality, but he could just hold the objective, and then we're in good shape. Magnus ends up doom bolting and then firing in shots into the Falcon, is able to bring that down afterwards. Now, beyond all of this, when we get into the shooting phase, Ahriman's unit gets out of the Rhino and pushes up to get into Yvrane's unit of Harlequin troops. We tried the cheeky Phantasm. If I would have rolled a 4+, I could have got entirely behind this wall. Unfortunately, there were a couple troops that were just in sight as he got out. They did not have enough to move them out entirely, knowing that, we can just Phantasm on any different side of the wall, which is pretty cool for us. They fire 1,000,000 shots in. I think it was like 8 flamers, or 8 or 9 flamers, and then a Reaper chain cannon, and then whatever the Inspiring Sorcerer has on top of that as well. He ended up getting like 25 or 26 hits. We only take, I think, 3 or 4 devastating wounds. We make a couple feel no pains on those. We make a good number of saves, and at the end of it, I believe we only lost 7 of our Harlequin troops throughout this entire unit. So we are actually in really good shape. I fully anticipated them to get wiped. I was hoping that we can hold off just long enough for the Vizark to survive, because if the Vizark can come into contact, charge through the wall on this unit, he's going to be able to do some pretty good work. We have another 6 on the fate dice to shove in there afterwards. The Mutalith Vortex Beast had to fall back. I did not realize that Thousand Suns didn't have a whole bunch of stuff they can do if they were tied up in combat. It was one of those issues where I just kind of assumed they were able to do things that maybe they weren't. So we lost a Falcon. We lost a good chunk of our Harlequin troops over here. We lost a unit of Harlequin troops over here as well. In the charge phase for our opponent, Magnus ended up charging into The unit of troops that got out of the Falcon wiped all of the troops except for the Troop Master, left him alive on 2 wounds. Lightning fast reactions, again, is very, very good, and the 4+ invulnerable saves make for a little bit more durability than I think most people expect. I think he had like 14 attacks at 8 -1 damage each. So we do walk away with the Troop Master. In our turn, we end up drawing Bring It Down and Secure No Man's Land. So we have a couple really good options for us here. We end up using Feigned Retreat to bring out the Troop Master. This is the one with Fate's Messenger, so we can somewhat guarantee at least a wound on Magnus, and we are within Melta range. The Skyweaver that was locked in combat up here ends up moving out. The Solitaire ends up blitzing all the way across the board to take over this objective over here, and then both of the empty Star Weavers push up from here and here to get onto this objective. In worst case scenario, contest it so our opponent isn't scoring there next turn. Our Star Weaver up here is now filled with troops, ends up pushing up towards this center portion of the board, and we're going to try to get shots on the Exalted Sorcerer on disc. Now we are stalemated back here. I cannot move these troops. If they do, they are going to get overwatched into oblivion. The turn prior, our opponent was talking about just trying to charge Ahriman's unit, and with the fight first, it would not have ended well. So after they hit them pretty good, we ended up just staying stationary. Yvraine is still able to shoot into this unit. We ended up resurrecting 2 of our models with her ability, and we're able to bring down 4 of the Rubric Marines from this unit. No Overwatch available just yet. The Star Weaver over here, the Star Weaver over here, and this Star Weaver all fire into this Exalted Sorcerer and are finally able to bring it down. It was 18 Shuriken Cannon shots, just kept making saves. It was kind of wild. Up here by Magnus, we end up throwing grenades. We get, I believe, 3 wounds through there. We bring out the unit of troops that was on our home field objective up front here. We get a couple fusion pistol shots as well. Do, I believe, another 2 wounds. The unit that got out of this Falcon over here ends up putting a bunch of fusion pistol shots in. The Falcon fires in, both of the D cannons fire in, and we are able to only bring Magnus down to, I believe, 2 or 3 wounds remaining. He took a ton of fire with grenades and cannons and devastating wounds there. His ability to blank a save and reroll a save and get a command point reroll is kind of out of this world. The durability of this unit was insane. I don't think there was anything I've played against that was able to tank this much firepower. I think one of the biggest contributors was we ended up rolling 2 6s to wound from one of these Skyweavers over here, and he had -1 damage as well, so we ended up pushing through an extra 4. In the charge phase, we just push everyone in. The Solitaire goes into the Infernal Master and the Sorcerer over here on this objective. All of our troops, the Troop Master, the troop getting out with the Troop Master from the Falcon, and the other unit of troops all charge Magnus. Hopefully, we can get some devastating wounds through with a few rerolls. And then we end up charging into the Rubric Marines over here. They do Overwatch on this side, and we lose everyone but the Vizarch to Overwatch. So it was just enough wounds to get through. We end up starting with the combat down here with the Vizarch, and he's able to wipe out, I believe, 6 or 7 of them. I think the only one remaining is Ahriman afterwards. Yes, I think he brought down 6. The Solitaire, oh, I'm sorry, the Magnus then interrupts and wipes out 4 of the troop that got out of the Falcon that were going to be getting rerolls. So we have the lead player, and we also have our Troop Master being able to reroll their devastating wounds. So this is 11 attacks. That's all we needed to get through, I believe, was 2 devastating wounds, and they are able to make that happen. Magnus does not explode. We don't take any more casualties, but we're able to bring him down for a good score on Bring It Down. The Solitaire then brings down this unit back here. Now, I don't know what it is, but the sight of a whole bunch of Harlequins just dogpiling different monsters and vehicles is always something I look forward to. Their damage is just so underestimated. This is a ton of attacks coming into this unit. They all have lance. Any type of damage mitigation doesn't matter. Are you going to re-roll a save for 1 damage? Are you going to blank a 1 damage save? No, it's just an abundance of extra attacks, and I believe we would have been able to push through about 4 or 5 of them if we did not take the swing from Magnus into our unit of troops getting out of the Falcon. Afterwards, that unit itself probably would have done anywhere from about 7 to 10 wounds to Magnus by themselves. They are so impactful. If we are playing Harlequins without Falcons, we're definitely doing something wrong, because it really does just allow us to start punching up. That Vizark punching into Ahriman's unit was just the chef's kiss of this matchup. Being able to bring down 6 Marine bodies with one guy was incredible. He did end up falling to Ahriman afterwards, but this unit, Yvrane's unit, just being aggressive, tying up our opponents, making them make horrible decisions, or just having to make bad decisions, really changed the dynamic of this game. When you don't understand exactly what your opponent's army is doing or what they can do, what you can almost guarantee is that if you tie them up, they're not going to be able to do it. One of the biggest questions I ask is, do you have the ability to fall back, shoot, or charge? If they don't, and you're unsure of what your options are, this honestly is sometimes the absolute best bet. I didn't know. I wasn't prepared. My brain wasn't working right. So we just charged this Harlequin troop in. At the end of the day, we brought down a unit of Zangors. We brought down a 10-man unit of Rubric Marines, another 5-man unit of Rubric Marines with an Infernal Master, a Mutalith Vortex Beast, and we kept our opponent held back in their deployment zone. This is only our turn 3. Our opponent has had 2 turns to try to make something happen. Regardless of how many abilities that they have or all the shenanigans and things that they can do, it doesn't matter if they're locked and blocked inside of their deployment zone. And then just for good measure, we have to give the Solitaire its time to shine. He actually did some really great work this game, both forcing our opponent up while they're burning the objective, but also being able to clear something late in the game is always huge. After all of the dust settles, our opponent is left with the final unit of cultists up here to get into battle with the Solitaire, who ended up just phantasming behind this wall. They're going to have to fight down 2 Star Weavers and the Solitaire. Afterwards, they have a Rhino, a Mutalith, and Ahriman left. They end up drawing Area Denial and Recover Assets, neither of which they are going to be able to score this turn. And as we just looked at the board, we kind of realized it's over. I don't have to do anything for the remainder of the game, and we are going to max on our scores. We're going to end up burning objectives and leaving our opponent pretty underhanded, even if we don't continue our push. So moving into our opponent's turn 3, they didn't have much to do. They didn't have much time in this game to make anything really happen. We were in their face. We had them locked in their deployment zone. It was kind of the perfect storm for us, and it was also a really nice game to get into. First coming back, I got to be honest, I was kind of nervous about playing against Thousand Suns. I know I have to get a video up. I have another video loaded for a Necrons matchup, but when I haven't been able to get that many games in, it's kind of nerve-wracking, hoping it's going to be a good one, hoping I don't get blown out. And I thought if I was going to get blown out, it was definitely going to be by Thousand Suns. As much as they're placing, as well as they're doing, I did not expect it to go this way. We talked out our secondaries. We would have ended up drawing no prisoners. We would ditch it, get overwhelming force and defend stronghold, and then end the game with engage on all fronts and behind enemy lines. All we had to do was burn 1 objective, and we are at a 50 for secondaries or primary, and then a 38 on our secondaries. So 98 to 34 would have been the game. So I think Harlequins have a lot of strengths into Thousand Suns, things that I didn't really consider. I build my lists to essentially out-activate my opponent, put them in difficult or precarious situations. I love when a 200-point unit has to dedicate all of its shooting to bringing down an 80-point unit of ours. I still have something left over afterwards, and then get to commit and punch up the turn after. This is why our troops are so good. They are so underrated and versatile. Having access to -1 to hit, having access to those 4+ invulnerable saves, or if they're with your Vrain, being able to get the 5+ feel no pain, especially against damage one-shots like the Flamers, is huge. And then being able to resurrect them afterwards is absolutely incredible. Thousand Sons don't have that much in the realm of combat, so your Vrain's Brick having fight first really keeps them from being able to push that little bit extra forward. Ahriman's unit at the bottom not being able to charge our Harlequin troop for fear of just getting blown out really kind of swung the game. They could have fired everything into them. If they didn't have fights first, they would have been able to charge afterwards. So definitely something that they could have taken advantage of. The D cannons were not super beneficial in this game, but it did keep our opponent from staging up much faster, which allowed us to pin them back into his deployment zone. The fear of a D cannon on something like a Mutalith Vortex Beast is a little too much, but also being able to apply the -1 to hit on something like Magnus seemed like a pretty good deal. It really allowed me to walk away in the end with one of my troops that was ultimately able to bring down Magnus afterwards. Just being able to be mobile, being able to stage, forcing our opponents into precarious situations seems really, really solid for us. I really view this matchup as something very similar to like a traditional Gladius Space Marines list. If I'm being as frank and honest as I can be, they did not have time or the ability to utilize all their tricks or their movement shenanigans. There were no double moves. He doom bolted a couple times, but essentially we just played to keep our opponent from being able to play their game, and it ended up panning out pretty well for us. But thank you again. I hope you enjoyed. I know it's been a while since we had a video. I've been dying to get Harlequins back on the table. I've been trying to talk and communicate as much as I can on a lot of the different forums or discords, but unfortunately, again, sometimes life just takes over and the toy soldiers have to take to the back burner. But in a game like this, I really, really hope this highlighted some of the things that we can do, or you may be able to do when confronting something like Thousand Sons, which are considered to be, I believe, still one of the best armies in the game. If you don't understand what you got to do, sometimes the best thing is to just stage, push forward, tie them up, and hope for the best afterwards. That's all we did in this game. It ended a lot sooner than I thought it was going to. Again, it was a little nerve-wracking, but it ended up being pretty fun for us, maybe not so much our opponents. But please like, share, subscribe, join the Discord. I'll have a link in the description above, and I appreciate you more than you can possibly imagine.